Okay, so if you clicked on this video, it's likely that you have this tendency to skate switch as if you're going backwards. So in other words, you have your back facing the direction you're going instead of opening up and allowing your chest to be exposed to that direction. So now, the biggest mistake skaters make when they start to introduce switch into their routine, their skate sessions, or just their arsenal of tricks is they go big because they can't see another reason to start with just a simple rolling down a ramp switch or kick turning, right? You can stay there, or turning front side. These small ways to introduce switch into your skating is so much more beneficial than trying to add a lot of speed or skate even the obstacles that you're used to skating in a switch stance. If I would have started, when I would have started skating switch, that instead of trying to do, you know, let's say even just like a switch 180 off the set of stairs, I can comfortably hard flip. What I would have told myself then was get super comfortable doing a ollie where you are exposing your chest towards the direction you are going, right? Instead of doing an ollie or a switch ollie like here, because that leans us into placing our weight over the back foot, which doesn't allow us to stabilize as effectively as possible. It doesn't allow us to really have proper mechanics that are going to set us up correctly for you know reliable pop, or even just the confidence as we approach different obstacles and slowly start to build the ability to do, you know, switch ollies into front board, switch into board slides, you know, switch feebles, whatever it may be. It just becomes so much more unreliable if you're doing an ollie in a restricted stance. This is restricted because you're pretty much skating backwards, and if you're in a defensive stance like that, it's gonna be, one, hard to see where you're going, right? Two, it's gonna be easy for you to be unstable, and then three, when you land, it's gonna be so much more harder to just keep yourself up. So if I could go back in time, I would go back in time and just really dial in these little simple things like kick turning, front side turns, backside turns, rolling down a ramp, and even slowly exposing myself to pop with that, if that's where I'm at in the skill. So here we are going to do a switch ollie on these stairs, and I want you to notice how my back is not facing the direction I'm going, which is the set of stairs. So that's an example, but it doesn't mean that's where you should start. Where you should start is doing something so much more, I would say, fundamental, and doing something like rolling off of a curb and making sure you can keep that posture where you're opened up, you're over that lead foot, and you can see where you're going. So let me just roll off this curb. Right? Even that one was a little off, and you can see my front shrug lifted. And so you want to work on these little habits or tendencies you want to gravitate to, and basically refine them out of your switch stance, because that's not going to help you when you try, let's say, a switch ollie or anything switch there, and you land very disengaged. And so on top of just rolling off switch and opening up, you want to make sure you're centered over that lead foot, which is my right one in my switch stance, and also making sure you're engaged, so you understand what it means to let your weight settle into that lead foot, right? So here we are again. It looks and it may feel a bit forced in the beginning, but eventually, as you start to, you know, put in your part, do the reps and iterate upon them, so get the feedback from those reps and make sure that you're paying attention to where the weaknesses are and overcoming those challenges, leaning into that discomfort so that you can make that comfortable, is where you're going to see a lot of progress. So for example, even just being able to roll switch, you want to be comfortable You want to be comfortable with just rolling into it without braking or without feeling like you're tensing up. And so this can also be applied when you're going up ramps, just like this, look, or even just dropping in. You're slowly introducing switch into your skating, just like you slowly introduce these things when you were skating regular or whatever, or goofy, whatever stance you are. A switch drop-in could be super helpful. A push, right? You learn how to push also before you can go fast, because you want to make sure you have control of your speed, right? Or control of you stepping off. So the same thing with skating switch. You want to make sure that you're confident with those pushes and making sure that when you push, you're still centered over that lead foot instead of like waddling from one side to the other. Just having yourself feel confident here is super beneficial, because you are the one controlling that speed, the direction. Now, another thing just about foot placement, you can play around with when you're just rolling around, riding around, cruising around, is playing with being able to adjust the direction by applying pressure towards the toes or towards the toe side, and then using your midfoot, not your heels, right? Not your heels, your midfoot, toes, to change that direction. So you can even put your foot in a bit more of a stance that's pointed towards the nose and play around with being on the board like this, toe side, and just messing around with this foot placement. See, right here, right here, right here, right here, right? I'm centered over this foot the whole time. This gives me a lot of control and improves my technique when it comes down to releasing that tension from the board as I still stay over that lead foot, right? So when you release tension, that's when your trucks come up. You're releasing tension by just bringing this foot closer to your chest. You notice how I'm not slipping back. If you have the tendency of slipping back, it's because you're disengaged either, which is like this, you're just slipping back, or you're centered over this back foot, which is causing you to, it doesn't matter if you're engaged, if you are centered over the back foot, it's going to be super easy to fall back because your weight isn't centered over that lead foot, right? The lead foot is defined by the direction you're going. So if I'm going towards this quarter pipe, my lead foot is the right one. Once I start rolling back, the direction I'm going is towards this mani pad, so it's the left. Let's say you do a switch 180, I'm going that way, right? So I do a switch 180. It starts on the right, it ends on the left. So just a little side tangent. So we went over slowly introducing it through ramps, kick turns, pushing. You might even want to do little manuals, right? You don't have to be the best at regulars at your own stance manuals. This is really just testing that ability of staying on your board without slipping back. And so if you feel confident already pushing, doing kick turns and little things like this, the manual can give you, or the intention to get better at manuals in a switch stance can give you so much feedback that will be beneficial to just building that technique. So now, once you feel super comfortable in these smaller, these situations that are a bit more easier, you can start to explore what it means to challenge that. Not in a way where you start to feel this like fight or flight, but in a way where you're slowly adapting to challenges that are a bit more difficult. So for example, let's say, you know, I've never skated anything switch before. An example would be something like me rolling off of this. Now I can make that a little more difficult by just dropping down and going faster off of it. Just push faster and see how I feel when I land. If that feels super comfortable, I may even try to switch ollie, right? I won't start with that speed, but I definitely will practice the pop. Or just like a little mani off. Once that feels comfortable, the natural inclination is to take it down bigger stairs. But there's no rush to do that. You could be patient. Something else you can do is just practice switch ollieing into a bank. switch ollie into or out of one. Chances are you're gonna be feeling that tendency to close off because you might be going into a fight or flight. And so if you feel like you can't open up and you can't kind of self-correct, your body's too frightened, then you want to take a step back. That's very contextual, and you got to build some self-awareness or be open to analyzing yourself. Not get paralyzed by analysis, but just accept that your body decides if you're ready for the next one. Because if you try to force it, then we're just going to be doing tricks that feel like we never really learned them, but we've landed them here and there. We want the progress to stick, and we want to learn tricks, not just land them. We're being patient. We're not trying to get to the level we're at in our regular stance. We're playing around with learning how to skate again in the switch stance, or learning how to skate again so that we can improve in the switch stance. So, you know, that really allows you to open up to the direction. You see? It's actually pretty fun. And then you can do it backside. Now, some things that you might not be paying attention to is, do I have my toes inside the board as I do these things? Or as I introduce these movements in the switch stance? Or am I kind of just like stiffened out and okay with bad foot placement and bad technique? So you really want to be able to point those things out. It's okay if, let's say, you go for the first turn and you're doing it like this. Look at my feet. Because you're like ready to bail out, right? That's okay. The point is, slowly make your way, slowly make those adjustments so you can improve little by little. And if you're in a state where it's super hard to make those adjustments, you got to take some steps back and understand that you're not there yet, right? Have some awareness, have patience, and recognize that it's a process, not a goal that you have to do that day or at that moment. Okay,
some humility.
Yeah, practice humility. Skating switch is a never-ending practice, just like it's a never-ending practice when you're skating your own stance, right? You gotta always be open to refining your switch skating and not accept that you're done at like a switch flip, right? You can always learn a switch frontside flip just like you've learned a frontside flip. The biggest barrier between you and skating switch more comfortably is the fact that you might be just completely closing it out of what you believe you're capable of. So if you find yourself, you know, saying, oh no, I can't do that when I skate switch, you really want to ask yourself, why do you believe that, and is that possibly limiting your effort in progressing? If you completely write something off and you never even give it your reps, then you can't really be sure if that's not possible. And so just keep an open mind when it comes down to learning switch, and make sure you're always looking for ways to improve in your switch stance. Sometimes it doesn't, you know, most times actually, it doesn't need to be trying anything crazy or even an ollie. It can just be something as simple as dropping in switch so that you can skate something fakey. Or it can be, as you land, as you do 180s, think about opening up so that primes you, so that to be way more familiar with a switch stance, right? So for example, before I used to do 180s, right, and just close myself off, land like this, very parallel to the board, but with the intention to open up to the direction I'm going and slowly introduce switch to me, to my skateboarding. You know, when I land the 180, I'm more intentional about making sure this is opened up to the direction I'm going. So little things like that, you want to look for the little 1% improvements or adjustments you can make so that switch becomes something, a part of your skating. So these changes, like I said, your body needs to allow them to happen. And so if you feel like you want to do it but you can't because you're scared, slow it down, take a step back, and just make sure you're open to the idea of always progressing towards the goal that might be, you know, to learn a specific switch trick, or just to be opened up so that if you want to learn something switch, you can make your way there if you really want it, right? So we're gonna do, to end the video, is a switch flip on the first set and then a switch flip down the second.
Oh damn.
So in a line. And what I really want you guys to, I guess, keep me accountable on, or like we want to keep each other accountable on, is making sure that we're opened up as we do the switch flip. It's super easy to stay closed off. I want to make sure I'm opening up, not just with my body, but also thinking about how my eyesight is opening up, my wrist is opening up, my hips are opened up, my knees, my toes, my foot. So you want to slowly or check those off the list, right? And the thing is, it happens at the same time. It's not like, okay, am I open up with my head? Am I open up with the shoulder? No, it's all like, it's a feeling that you should, that should feel natural as you continue to iterate on it. So here we go. Oh, but before I do that, if you're interested in lessons or coaching, hit me up at profe.carlos on Instagram, profe.carloss. You can send me a video, a question, and then we can go over what that would look like for you, or even just give some feedback on what you send. If you are interested in, you know, something a bit less personal, but still want some form of coaching, memberships on YouTube are going to be available, so you can check that out as well. What I offer there is very entry-level information, but also a community that that will, you know, hopefully keep each other accountable. It just started. I just got access to that, so much more to grow in that sense. If you are, you know, you like watching lives, we are on live almost every day. Thanks to Brian. Again, shout out Brian, everyone, and shout out to the regulars out there, or shout out to you, the regular.
Oh.
You guys can see how I was on the back foot a lot, and that might have been because, you know, I set up too quick. I didn't really get enough time to open up the way I would have liked. So I'm going to start from a bit behind, and in hopes of getting a bit more comfortable opening up before I actually go for the pop. All right. I kind of scraped myself. Ow. Okay, so again, it's super crucial that you're patient with yourself. It's a whole different stance, and if you're not consistent with it, it's going to get you mentally frustrated, right? Or it's going to get you frustrated, and you want to make sure you are practicing the skill of just taking a breather, analyzing what may have not helped you. For example, right there, aside from, you know, figuring out that speed, when I landed, I kind of swerved to the right, and then I tried to straighten out, and then I pushed. So there was a lot going on there. So what I need to improve is just the landing part here, and that may have started since when I rolled in, right? So I gotta fix what went wrong in the beginning, which is just making sure I feel like I'm going the direction I want to go with enough speed, so that I'm not forcing that push, and I have enough energy to actually go for the switch flip and apply these concepts like staying over that lead foot and making sure that I'm jumping straight up instead of jumping forward like I did there, which I left my board behind.
That's something you could have mentioned too, getting on your board switch.
Yeah, even just get little things like getting on your board switch, making sure you're not falling over the nose, or even just slipping back. I mentioned a lot slipping back, but it also applies when you're going forward prematurely. I did like a mix of, as soon as I popped, I went back here. So like when I flicked, the flick let go and I couldn't really catch it. So again, I just wasn't centered over that lead foot. So I wasn't stable from the pop. Even when I landed there, I landed on the back foot. What I need to work on is just staying centered over that lead foot. And so if I were warming up, what I want to do, or even between now, is just practice being very comfortable staying over that right leg or that right foot, so that I know what that feeling should be like when I go down into the board, right? On that one, I didn't even put the pressure or apply that tension on that right foot. Like, I was leaned over, but I didn't stabilize over that lead foot. All I did was lift it, and then I like lift and flick. And that's why you can see it flicking like a rocket.